Hospital room. The soft beeping of the heart monitor. Dr. James adjusts Luna's chart at the foot of her bed. His smile softens as he watches her. Dr. James. Seriously, you've been through a lot, Luna. It's amazing how resilient you are. Smirking. Resilient or just stubborn? Dr. James. Laughing. A bit of both, I'd say. But it's working in your favor. Luna leans back against her pillow, her gaze shifting to the window. The sunlight streams through, casting a golden glow over her. Softly. You know, being here, it's forced me to think about life differently. Dr. James. Sitting on a nearby stool. Pausing. I used to take everything for granted, my health, my career, even the little things like morning coffee. But now, it's like I see everything in sharper focus. Dr. James. Nodding. Sometimes it takes a storm to appreciate the sunlight. There's a moment of silence between them, comfortable yet charged. Dr. James hesitates, then leans in slightly. Dr. James. Luna, I hope you know, you're not just another patient to me. Luna's eyes widen slightly, her cheeks flushing. Teasingly. Isn't there some rule about doctors not getting too attached to their patients? Dr. James. Grinning. Probably. But I'd argue there's no rule against caring. Dr. James steps out of Luna's room, exhaling deeply. A nurse, Amelia, mid-40s, notices him and smirks knowingly. Amelia. Slyly. Another heart you're mending, Dr. James? Dr. James. Trying to brush it off. Just doing my job, Amelia. Amelia. Amused. Sure you are. Dr. James chuckles and walks away, but his expression grows thoughtful. Luna sits up slightly, her gaze fixed on the small notebook in her lap. She's writing, her pen moving steadily across the page. Her voice becomes as she writes. Sometimes, the people we meet during our hardest moments aren't just passing through, they're meant to stay. The sunlight pours through the windows, bright and warm. Luna is sitting up in bed, her strength visibly returning. There's a tray of untouched food beside her. She's staring at the door as though waiting for something or someone. A soft knock interrupts her thoughts. Dr. James. Peeking in. Is this a good time, or should I come back later with a bad joke to lighten the mood? Smiling. You're already here, so I'll take my chances. Dr. James steps inside, holding a small potted plant. It's a delicate orchid with white petals. Dr. James. I thought you might like this. Orchids symbolize strength and beauty, qualities you seem to have in abundance. It's beautiful. Thank you. She takes the plant carefully, their fingers brushing momentarily. There's a brief pause, a shared moment. Dr. James. Softly. Luna, there's something I need to tell you before your discharge. Half joking. If you're about to give me another list of medications, I might scream. Dr. James. Chuckling. No, nothing like that. He sits in the chair beside her bed, his demeanor more serious now. Dr. James. When I started this job, I promised myself I'd always keep a professional distance. But meeting you has made that harder than I ever thought it could be. Surprised. Dr. James. Interrupting. You don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know that you've changed me, made me look at life differently too. Softly. For what it's worth, you've done the same for me. The connection between them is palpable. Dr. James glances at his watch, breaking the intensity of the moment. Dr. James. I have to check on another patient, but I'll be back later to go over your discharge plan. Teasing. You're leaving me with homework, aren't you? Dr. James. Grinning. Only a little. He stands, hesitates for a moment, and then lightly touches her shoulder before leaving the room. Dr. James walks down the hallway, his expression a mix of relief and uncertainty. Amelia approaches, raising an eyebrow. Amelia. Let me guess, another just doing my job moment? Dr. James. Smirking. You know me too well. Amelia. Patting his shoulder. Careful, James. Sometimes, the best things in life come with a little risk. Luna stares at the orchid on her bedside table, her thoughts swirling. She picks up her notebook and starts to write again. Luna, life doesn't always give us clear answers, but sometimes it gives us chances. And maybe this is mine. Dr. James walks with purpose, his mind racing as the whispers of the nurses echo in his thoughts. He tries to block out their words, but they linger in his mind like a weight he can't shake. Nurse 1. Softly to Nurse 2. I mean, have you seen the way he looks at her? It's different, you know? Nurse 2. Smirking. I know. But he's always so professional, right? I guess there's no harm in speculating. Dr. James rounds the corner and walks toward Luna's room, his footsteps quickening as he approaches. He can feel the nervous tension building in his chest. His connection with Luna has grown stronger over the past few weeks, and it's becoming harder to ignore. He pauses outside her door, his hand on the handle. He takes a deep breath before entering. Dr. James. Entering the room, his voice soft but steady. Good morning, Luna. How are you feeling today? Luna, a young woman in her early 20s, lies in bed with a faint smile on her face. Her eyes light up at the sight of him, and her voice is weak but full of warmth. Smiling weakly. Better, I think. You've been making your rounds so much, you must be tired. Dr. James chuckles, though it's tinged with an unease he's been feeling ever since their first real conversation. Dr. James. Not too tired to make sure you're okay. How's the pain today? Luna shifts slightly, wincing just a little as she adjusts herself. Dr. James notices her discomfort and steps closer to adjust the pillow behind her. It's bearable. You've been so kind, Dr. James. I really appreciate it. Dr. James feels a pang in his chest at her words. Her gratitude is genuine, but there's something more beneath the surface. A connection he knows he should resist. He pulls back slightly, trying to maintain the professional distance. Dr. James. I'm just doing my job. You're a fighter, Luna. I have no doubt you'll get through this. Luna looks up at him with a mix of admiration and something else, something deeper. She reaches out and takes his hand, a gesture that startles him. His breath hitches, but he doesn't pull away. Softly. I think I'm starting to believe it. You're not just a doctor to me. You've been so much more. Dr. James looks at their joined hands, his pulse quickening. He's caught in the web of emotions he's tried to suppress, but the connection between them is undeniable. A moment of silence hangs between them, thick and heavy, until Luna speaks again. Sincerely, I know this might be inappropriate, but I feel like I can tell you anything. You're different from the others. Dr. James opens his mouth to say something, but the words get stuck in his throat. He's torn between his desire to protect her and the pull of his growing feelings for her. Just then, a knock at the door interrupts the moment. Dr. James quickly lets go of Luna's hand, standing up straighter as the door opens. Nurse 1. Cheerfully. Dr. James, we need you in the ER. There's a situation with one of the trauma patients. Dr. James gives Luna a reassuring smile, his heart racing as he turns to leave. Dr. James. I'll be back soon, Luna. Rest up. He walks toward the door, but before he exits, he looks back one last time, locking eyes with Luna. He knows there's more to this than just being her doctor. The feeling is mutual, but the consequences of acting on it could be far-reaching. He hesitates for a moment, torn between his professional responsibilities and personal emotions, before stepping out of the room. As he walks down the hallway, the weight of the nurse's gossip still lingers in the back of his mind. He knows their eyes are on him, but in that moment, all he can think about is Luna. Nurse 2. Whispering to Nurse 1. Did you see that? He looked back at her. Nurse 1. Smirking. I knew it. They're not just doctor and patient. There's something more. Dr. James walks away, his mind clouded with the uncertainty of what's to come. He can't deny the feelings that are growing between him and Luna, but he knows that a line has been crossed. The question is, how much further will he let it go before it's too late? Dr. James arrives to find the trauma team already in action. He slips into his professional mode, his focus snapping to the patient as they move swiftly to stabilize him. He's in the zone, making quick decisions, his mind momentarily distracted from everything else. The flurry of activity around him is almost a relief, a temporary escape from the pull Luna has over him. But even as he works, he can't help but glance at the clock on the wall. He wonders how Luna is doing. The question lingers, distracting him in the midst of his duties. Trauma nurse. Approaching him with a clipboard. Dr. James, the patient is stable for now. We'll move him to the ICU. Dr. James. Good work. Keep me updated on his condition. As he watches the team wheel the patient away, his phone buzzes in his pocket. He pulls it out, glancing at the screen. It's a message from Luna. I'm thinking about you. I know you're busy, but I just wanted you to know. Dr. James feels his chest tighten as he stares at the message. It's innocent enough, but there's something in it, something that feels intimate, personal. He quickly types a response. Dr. James, I'm thinking about you too. Rest as much as you can. I'll be back to check on you soon. He stares at the message for a moment before pressing send, the weight of the words settling in his mind. He feels a strange mix of excitement and dread, knowing that this connection, whatever it is, could complicate everything. Just then, his pager goes off, pulling him back into the present. A new emergency has come in, and he knows he can't afford to let his mind wander. He takes a deep breath, trying to focus on the task at hand. Dr. James. Under his breath. Later. I'll think about it later. Luna lies in bed, her thoughts swirling as she stares up at the ceiling. She can't shake the memory of Dr. James's eyes, how they lingered on her hand, how everything seemed to pause when they connected. She knows he's her doctor, and she knows it's wrong to feel this way, but she can't help it. She reaches for her phone again, debating whether or not to message him. She hesitates for a long moment before deciding to send something more lighthearted this time. You've been so serious today. Don't forget to smile once in a while. I'm rooting for you, Dr. James. She hits send, feeling both a flutter of anticipation and a pang of uncertainty. Is she crossing a line? Is this too much? She pulls the blanket tighter around her shoulders, trying to ignore the feeling that she's doing something she shouldn't. Moments later, Dr. James's response comes through, his message brief but sincere. Luna places the book down, her fingers lightly trembling. She looks at Dr. James, confused and concerned. Softly. Complicates things? What do you mean? Dr. James says, it's not about you, Luna. It's about the situation we're in. You're a patient, and I'm your doctor. There's a line I shouldn't be crossing. Luna looks away, her heart pounding. She tries to process the gravity of his words. Faintly. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask to feel this way. Dr. James. Quietly. I know. But sometimes, emotions are stronger than reason. And I'm not immune to that. I've been struggling with this. With you. But I have a responsibility, Luna. Eyes glistening, voice breaking. You care about me, but I'm just another patient to you, aren't I? Just someone you have to fix and move on from. She stands up, pacing around the room, trying to regain her composure. Dr. James. Quickly. That's not what I'm saying at all. You're not just another patient. You're someone who's become important to me, in ways I can't ignore. But I have to be professional. We both have to respect that boundary. Luna pauses, her back to him, taking a deep breath. She tries to steady herself, but it's clear she's fighting the urge to cry. Quietly. So, what happens now? What do we do? Dr. James walks closer to her, his expression pained. Dr. James. Softly. We stay away from each other, for now. At least until you're out of here. And we take a step back from this, whatever this is. Luna turns to face him, eyes searching his face for a sign of hope or resolution. Whispers. And if I can't let go? What if I can't forget how you make me feel? There's a long, aching pause. Dr. James looks at her, conflicted, before speaking again. Dr. James. Slowly. You're stronger than you think. And I'll be here for you as your doctor. That's all I can offer, right now. Luna nods, her throat tight, but she doesn't speak. They both stand in silence, the weight of the unspoken hanging between them. As Dr. James exits the room, Luna sits down on the bed, feeling more alone than ever before. The wind rustles through the air as Dr. James and Luna stand apart, the weight of the moment hanging between them. The city lights below them pulse in rhythm, but neither of them speaks at first. Voice trembling slightly. This isn't just about us, you know. There's more at stake. If anyone finds out, it won't just be our careers on the line. Dr. James. Slowly turning to face her. I know. But I can't keep pretending I don't feel this way about you. I've spent too long denying it. Stepping back, shaking her head. And I've spent too long building walls around myself. This is dangerous, James. Dr. James. Softly, with determination. But isn't it worth the risk? What we have, it's different. I've never felt this way before. Not like this. Crossing her arms, looking away. You think it's easy for me? I'm not like you. I can't just throw caution to the wind. Everything I've worked for, everything I've built, it could all fall apart. Dr. James. Stepping closer. I'm not asking you to throw it all away. I'm asking you to take a chance. We can figure it out, together. No one has to know if we're careful. Sighing deeply, her eyes clouding with doubt. It's not just about being careful. It's about whether we can go back once we cross this line. If we're not careful, we'll both lose everything. Dr. James. Quietly, but with a slight smile. Then we'll just have to make sure we don't lose anything. I'm willing to fight for us, Luna. Are you? Luna's gaze softens for a moment. Her eyes flicker toward the horizon, where the city lights shimmer in the distance. Her breath hitches, but she takes a step forward, closing the distance between them. Whispers. I don't know if I'm strong enough for this, but for some reason, I can't stay away from you. Dr. James. Gently cupping her face. You don't have to be strong alone. Let me be strong for you. They share a brief, lingering kiss again, but this time it's more tender, filled with uncertainty yet undeniable longing. They pull away, looking at each other as if seeing each other for the first time, but also knowing this moment will change everything. Softly. We have to be careful, James. Whatever we do, we can't afford to make a mistake. Dr. James. Eyes steady, resolved. We'll be careful. I promise. But I won't let you walk away from this. Not again. They stand there in silence for a moment, both knowing the road ahead will be difficult, but with the unspoken understanding that they will face it together no matter what. The sound of the city hums faintly below them. Luna looks at Dr. James, her mind racing with the consequences of what they've just shared. The air between them is thick with unspoken thoughts, and Luna finally breaks the silence. Softly, almost to herself. What happens if we can't keep it a secret? What if someone does find out? Dr. James. Looking out over the city, his voice steady but with a hint of concern. We deal with it. Together. I'm not going to run from this, Luna. But we have to decide what we're willing to risk, what's more important. Nods, but her eyes show hesitation. I'm scared, James. Scared of losing everything, of ruining everything. My reputation, my job, everything I've worked for. It's not just a fling. It's real. And if it doesn't work out, what then? Dr. James. Steps closer, his voice soft. Then we figure it out. We'll both find a way to navigate it. But I believe in us. I believe we're stronger than all the complications. If we're together, we can handle whatever comes. Luna exhales deeply, glancing away as though contemplating the weight of his words. She turns back to him, her eyes more vulnerable now. And what about the others? What will they think if they find out? The people we work with, the staff, and our families. It could ruin everything we've built, our credibility. You know how strict the hospital is about relationships between staff. Dr. James places a hand on her shoulder, reassuring. We'll be careful. We'll make sure nothing slips out. We won't give them any reason to question us. As long as we stay professional on the surface, no one has to know the truth. Luna sighs, her fingers twitching slightly as she tucks a strand of hair behind her ear. She seems torn, but there's something in his eyes, a promise, that makes her feel like this might be worth it. I don't know if I'm ready for this. I've always been so careful with my choices. What if we can't control it? What if we get caught? Dr. James. Quietly but with certainty. You don't have to do it alone. I'm right here. Whatever happens, we face it together. Luna takes a deep breath, her chest rising and falling with the weight of their decision. For a moment, she looks up at the stars, as if searching for some kind of sign, some kind of clarity. She then slowly turns back to Dr. James, her expression resolute. Small smile. But we have to be smart about this. No mistakes. We keep it quiet until we know we can handle it. Dr. James. Smiling back. I can do that. No mistakes, I promise. They share another brief kiss, this time filled with quiet determination. It's a new beginning, one fraught with uncertainty, but for the first time, Luna feels like maybe just maybe it's worth the risk. They stand there together, silently acknowledging the path they're about to walk down, not knowing where it will lead, but knowing they're not alone in the journey. Whispers. Let's make sure it's worth it. Dr. James. Softly. We will. As they look out over the city together, the lights twinkle like stars, and the future remains uncertain, but for them, in this moment, the world feels smaller and more possible, just a little bit more within their grasp. Luna stands up, her bags packed. Dr. James helps her adjust the straps on her shoulder bag, his gaze lingering on her for a moment longer than usual. The room feels quiet, filled with the hum of machines and the soft shuffle of their feet. Half smiling. I guess I'll just have to find a new excuse to come back. I've gotten used to the view from this room. Dr. James. Chuckling. You were always too curious for your own good. Maybe that's why you're still here. Luna laughs softly, but there's a sense of sadness in the air, both knowing this goodbye isn't as simple as it seems. You know, for a doctor, you're pretty easy to talk to. Dr. James. Surprised. I thought I was the one who had the tough conversations around here. Sincere. No, really. You made being here a lot easier. Most people just treat me like a patient, but you, pauses, you listened. Dr. James looks away, trying to hide his discomfort. He's used to being professional, but Luna's words cut deeper than he expected. His hand moves to adjust the forestand, a gesture meant to avoid her eyes. Dr. James. I just do my job. But I'm glad it helped. Softly, but with a hint of vulnerability. Do you ever wish you could step out of the hospital and live a little? Just stop being the doctor for a while? Dr. James' expression falters. It's clear he's conflicted, but his voice remains steady. Dr. James. I have my moments. But life isn't that simple, is it? People depend on me here, and I can't just turn my back on that. Quietly, eyes down. I get that. You have your reasons just like I have mine. There's a pause, and then Luna takes a deep breath, glancing up at him again. Half teasing. I'll miss seeing your face every day. Dr. James. Soft chuckle. I'll miss yours too. The air is thick with unspoken emotions, a tension that neither of them knows how to address. Luna stands up straighter, feeling the weight of the moment. Quietly. Thank you, Dr. James. For everything. Dr. James gives her a small nod, a professional smile masking the complexity of his emotions. Dr. James. Take care of yourself, Luna. Remember, it's not always about being strong. You don't have to carry everything alone. Luna smiles faintly, feeling the sincerity in his words, before she heads toward the door. As she leaves, Dr. James watches her go, his thoughts a whirlwind of regret and longing. Luna stops at the door and looks back one last time. Softly. Maybe one day, we won't have to hide. And with that, she exits, leaving Dr. James alone with his thoughts. He stands in the middle of the room, the weight of her words hanging in the silence. Leaning forward. So, tell me, what's the most interesting case you've had lately? Dr. James. Smirking. You really want to know? It might make you second-guess our coffee meetings. Raises an eyebrow, intrigued. Now you have to tell me. You can't just leave me hanging. Dr. James. Chuckles, but his eyes are serious. Well, there was this woman, a mother of 3, who came in with a lot of unresolved trauma. It wasn't the usual kind of thing. She was dealing with something much deeper, something no one had talked about for years. Luna's expression softens, concerned. Quietly. That sounds intense. How did you help her? Dr. James. Softly. I didn't. Not right away, anyway. Sometimes, the hardest part is just getting someone to admit they need help, let alone dealing with what they've buried. It's like cracking a safe without a key. Luna nods thoughtfully, her gaze meeting his. That's tough. But I guess it's a reminder that everyone has their own battles. Dr. James. Sincerely. Exactly. And sometimes, the ones we think have it all together are the ones who need the most help. They share a meaningful look, the weight of the conversation deepening their connection. I get that. Pauses. You're not as cold as you seem, you know. Dr. James. Grinning. I've been told I'm an enigma. But I'm glad to know you think there's warmth underneath all the layers. Luna laughs, a genuine smile on her face as she squeezes his hand. You know, for someone who's seen so much darkness, you've got a way of making it feel lighter. Dr. James. Sincerely. That's because I don't want anyone to feel like they're facing it alone. Not even you. The two of them fall into a comfortable silence, but it's not awkward. There's an understanding between them, the chemistry growing stronger. Their fingers remain intertwined, a subtle promise of something deeper yet to come. Luna and Dr. James sit in silence for a moment, both lost in their own thoughts. Luna traces the rim of her cup, her mind working, while Dr. James observes her, his gaze soft. Dr. James. Quietly. You're thinking about something, aren't you? Looking up, surprised. What makes you say that? Dr. James. Smiling. You have that look on your face. The one where you're trying to figure something out. Luna chuckles, shaking her head. I'm just wondering what all of this means. This connection. It feels so easy, but we both know life isn't always that simple. Dr. James. Leaning forward, his voice gentle. Life isn't simple, but it's the complicated moments that make the easy ones worth it. He reaches across the table, his hand hovering for a moment before gently brushing hers, a subtle reassurance. Dr. James. Sincerely. And I don't think either of us are the type to back down from something worth fighting for. Luna looks down at their joined hands, her heart racing a little. She lets out a soft breath, unsure of what the future holds, but finding comfort in the present. Softly. What if we're making a mistake? What if this is all too much too soon? Dr. James. Sincerely. Mistakes are part of the journey. We don't know what will happen, but we can choose to face it together. If you're willing to take that chance with me. Luna looks up, meeting his gaze. There's an unspoken trust, a bond forming between them in the quiet moments. She nods slowly. Quietly. I think I am. Dr. James smiles, the warmth in his eyes undeniable. They sit there for a moment, basking in the shared understanding of their unspoken promise. Dr. James. Smiling softly. Then let's take this one step at a time. No pressure, just two people seeing where it leads. One step at a time. They sit in a comfortable silence once more, each feeling more connected than before, knowing they've just crossed a line they can't uncross, but neither of them seems to mind. Dr. James stands by the coffee machine, his fingers tapping nervously against the mug in his hand. His colleague, Dr. Lucas, watches him with a mixture of concern and caution. The break room feels quieter than usual, as if the walls are closing in around the tension between the two doctors. Dr. Lucas. Leaning against the counter. I'm just looking out for you, James. You've worked too hard to let something like this ruin your career. Dr. James. Sighing deeply. I know. But it's not just a fling, Lucas. Luna, it's different. I can't explain it. Dr. Lucas. Frowning. And what about her? Luna's the new resident. She's still finding her place here. This could be a huge complication for both of you. Dr. James. Quietly. I didn't plan for any of this. I wasn't looking for someone to complicate my life, but when she came into there that night, something clicked. Dr. Lucas watches him, sensing the sincerity in his voice. He exhales, shaking his head as if weighing his options. Dr. Lucas. I've known you long enough to see when you're serious. But I don't think you realize just how much this could blow up in your face if you're not careful. Dr. James. Looking out the window, voice filled with doubt. I don't know what to do, Lucas. Every time I see her, I want to be there for her. I want to protect her. But the rules, the hospital, I'm stuck. Dr. Lucas. Sighing. You're not the first to fall for a colleague. But trust me, you're playing with fire here. The higher-ups are always watching, and one wrong move, one slip-up, and they'll throw you under the bus without hesitation. Dr. James stares down at the mug in his hands, the weight of his choices pressing down on him. Dr. James. Softly. I just don't know if I can walk away from her, Lucas. Dr. Lucas. Slowly. You have to decide, James. You can't have both. You have to choose your career or her. The words hit Dr. James harder than he expected. He knew the risks, but hearing them out loud makes the consequences real. He exhales, his mind racing. Dr. James. Whispering. I never wanted to choose between the two. But I guess I have no choice now. Dr. Lucas watches his friend, knowing the decision won't be easy. The door opens and Luna walks in, smiling as she notices the two doctors in conversation. Teasing. Am I interrupting something? Both men look at her, and for a moment, Dr. James's gaze softens, a hint of something deeper in his eyes. Dr. Lucas. Sternly but with a smile. Just a friendly reminder about the rules, Dr. Summers. You'd better watch out. Luna raises an eyebrow, sensing the undercurrent of tension in the room. Dr. James doesn't respond, his thoughts elsewhere. Grinning. You two are always so serious. I'll let you get back to work. She winks playfully. I'll catch you later? As she leaves, Dr. Lucas watches James closely, his expression serious. Dr. Lucas. Quietly. Don't say I didn't warn you. Dr. James stares at the door, his heart torn between his career and the woman who's begun to mean more to him than he ever expected. Luna's hands trembled as she stared at the message on her phone. Can we talk? I need to see you. The words felt like a jolt of electricity through her chest. She quickly set her phone down on the kitchen counter, her mind racing with 100 different thoughts. But what did he want to talk about? She looked around her apartment, her eyes landing on the disarray of her things, books, clothes, and unfinished cups of coffee scattered about. She hadn't expected a message like this tonight. Her heart pounded in her chest as she moved to get dressed. Something about Dr. James had always unsettled her, but she couldn't deny that she was drawn to him. A part of her had hoped he would reach out again, but now that he had, Luna felt a mixture of excitement and dread. She settled on a simple black dress, one that she had always felt confident in. As she put on her shoes, she noticed the reflection of her nervous face in the mirror. Her hair was slightly tousled from the day, but she didn't have time to fix it. The urgency of his message made it feel like there was no turning back now. Her phone buzzed again, pulling her out of her thoughts. She picked it up and saw another text from Dr. James. Text from Dr. James. I'm at the cafe. Please come. Luna swallowed hard. She grabbed her coat and rushed out the door, her pulse quickening with every step. The cafe was just a short walk away, but it felt like an eternity. What did he need to say? Why was he so insistent? As she neared the dimly lit cafe, she saw Dr. James sitting in a secluded corner, his eyes fixed on his phone. He looked up when he heard her footsteps. Luna, he said softly, standing to greet her. I'm glad you came. She nodded but said nothing, her eyes searching his face for any clue to what was going on. Please, sit. He motioned to the empty seat across from him. I know this is sudden, but there's something I need to confess. Luna hesitated before sitting down. Her heart raced, the anticipation almost too much to bear. What is it, Dr. James? What's going on? He sighed deeply, his gaze flickering toward the door as if checking for someone. When he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. I didn't want you to find out this way, but I have to tell you. I'm not who you think I am.